Welcome to a video tutorial from Valentia Photography Workshops and me, Stephen Power. This one is about selective use of the texture slider in Adobe Lightroom Classic to give extra sharpening and punch to your images. Hi, welcome to part 3 of my series of videos on sharpening in Adobe Lightroom Classic. In this one I'm going to show you a secret tool for sharpening your images. First thing to say is it's not a sharpening tool, and secondly it's not really a secret, because for those of you who've got the most recent version of Lightroom Classic, and I'm recording this in July 2020, you will already know about the texture slider, which is in the presence panel just above clarity in the develop module of Lightroom. It's often used to add texture. It looks like a sort of mid-tone contrast come sharpening inside the whole of the image, or on the whole of the image. So I'm moving it up now. I've got it up to plus 50 or so, and you can see it has brought out the texture quite well. What I've discovered is that if you use it selectively with the adjustment brush tool, then you can make more subtle changes to your image rather than bringing out the detail in the whole image. So for example, I've zoomed in here 1:1 on the sheep. I'm going to go into the adjustment brush, move the texture slider up a little bit. We'll start at about 25. Make sure that the brush is wide enough to cover the area I'm going to paint on, using the closed square bracket to do that. Left click and then drag around the area of the photograph that I want to change. Now 25, and it's quite subtle. There is some change happening, but it's, it's not dramatic. Well, if we go up a bit further, really starts to pull out the tones in the wool of that particular sheep. It looks like it's been sharpened, and perhaps to some extent it has. Seems to be bringing out the tones quite well. So for example, we could just leave that one to stand out a little bit more, or we could move around the image and find others to work on. And you do really have to pick your subjects for this. So here, where the wool is quite broken up, that will sort of have more of an effect than perhaps if we pick an object that's smoother in texture. So just going around it carefully to pick out one or two, just to make a subtle difference within the image. And I actually think that works quite well. Then we can think about adding overall sharpness to the image. I'll take this to about 60. And so you've got the overall sharpness and these sort of little subtle changes within the image, which I think work quite well. Let's have a look at one more. So here's a busker in Galway City in Ireland. So the same thing again, we'll go into the adjustment brush tool, and we'll make sure that the texture slider is somewhere reasonably high to start with. Let's try 50. And just paint on the area that you want to bring out the texture in. Again, this is happening because of the cobblestones, I think, but not so much. It wouldn't work so well on the flat areas. Let's try the wall here. And so we've got some sharpness appearing there. It's subtle, and I think we're after subtle, not sort of in your face with this tool. Just bringing out the extra sharpness in the stonework. Might actually just bring the highlights down, but as I mentioned in the previous video, be careful of changing areas that are different, maybe in exposure or tone. So it's always a good idea to work on one area that's quite similar in tone whenever you're using the adjustment brush with any slider, and then come out of it and go back in to change something else in a different way. Again, with this one, we can add sharpness overall if we want later, and it's really brought out the tones in that. Let's have a look at the before and after. So that's really giving it some serious punch there. So that's something worth thinking about. It's the texture slider used selectively with the adjustment brush tool. Let's keep it our secret unless you would like to share this video, in which case please do, and I'll see you again next time.